Southern Launch gears up to receive satellites at Koonibba. Environmental groups sue the FAA over Starship. Astronomers hunt for pulsars. And Jupiter and Saturn may be contributing to their moon's smooth surfaces in a different way than previously thought.
This is Trekzone's Talkin' Science.
This is the podcast where you get the science and space headlines now. Southern Launch have signed a memorandum of understanding with UK-based Space Forge for satellite returns. The Koonibba test range will be the target for the Forge Star, a small class of vehicle that can be deployed from conventional launch systems to provide rapid, reliable and reusable infrastructure. The Koonibba range is around half the size of Space Forge's entire home country of Wales and is located close to the Whalers Way orbital launch complex for refurbished vehicles to fly again. While Space Forge are aiming to test their methods sometime this year, they'll be working with Southern Launch to elaborate on the memorandum over the coming months, with a joint mission hopefully announcing sometime this year. For more, Amy Featherston's beaming in from Southern Launch. Amy, welcome to Trekzone. It's been a busy month down there. Plenty to discuss. Can you talk us through the Memorandum of Understanding, please?
Yeah, so we're incredibly excited to sign this MOU with Space Forge at the International Space Symposium that happened in Colorado Springs a few weeks back. Basically, what this MOU will look at doing is exploring Space Forge using the Koonibba test range to re-enter their satellites into the Earth's atmosphere. From there, the satellites will be recovered from the range and then hopefully in the future refurbished and sent back up into space from our Whalers Way orbital launch complex. So it's kind of bringing that circular space economy into South Australia, and we're incredibly excited to be a part of it.
I love the fact that the Koonibba range is about half the size of Space Forge's entire home country of Wales. Kind of makes sense why they're looking internationally and especially here in Australia as well.
Yeah, I knew that we always had 10,000 square meters of space out there, but then when I kind of used a country to compare it to, it really kind of blew my mind. And you forget it's 145 kilometers out from where we can launch. So also when you put that into perspective, traveling 145 Ks, you realize the vast amount of space that we have out there and how perfect it is for Space Forge to use.
There's a flow-on effect here with Space Forge, as you say, looking to refurbish and launch satellites close to each other. So receive them at Koonibba, meaning Whalers Way plays a very important part down there in December, chatting with Lloyd, and didn't get those launches then, but looking ahead now, and this is the plan to have these two sites, and we've got access to polar orbit. It is really a relative hop, skip and a jump away. Exactly.
It's 4 hours down the road, so, nothing in the scheme of things. But the polar orbit is incredibly attractive to Space Forge for their re-entry, so that's the key advantage that we have. And also the collaboration that we've seen between the two companies already has been fantastic. So we're looking forward to, over the next few months, exploring that even further and doing some incredible things for the Australian space industry.
What is the timeline for collaboration?
Everything's now signed, sealed and delivered, so that means we can really get into each other's business in a sense. And then we'll hopefully be announcing something towards the end of the year, but space is hard and these things always take longer than we think, but we're really hopeful that we'll be announcing something before the end of the year.
Plenty of exciting news in April from Southern Launch, including the Koonibba Aboriginal Corporation's grant to develop the permanent facilities at the test range, plus the Australian Space Award nominations. Amy and I dive into all of that on the next Talkin' Science interview. Catch it now on the trek.zone/TS051. A coalition of environmental groups is suing the US Federal Aviation Administration over the launch license granted to SpaceX for Starship. The coalition alleges the government agency didn't fully analyse the environmental damage Starship could cause to sensitive lands. The Centre for Biological Diversity, the American Bird Conservancy, the Surfrider Foundation, Save RGV and the Carrizo Comcrudo Nation of Texas formed the coalition to oppose the license, and following the destructive test on April 20, feel their voices need to be heard. However, it's not just the particulate matter that rained down following the aborted launch attempt, but the increased vehicle traffic, heat, noise and light pollution associated with construction and launch activities. The suit comes after the FAA cleared 20 launches each year for the next 5 years for Starship. Well, Space Australia reports a new science survey is using Western Australia's low-frequency Murchison Wide Field Array telescope to scan for pulsars. The Southern Sky MWA Rapid 2-metre or SMART Pulsar survey is scanning the entire Australian sky for lower frequency emissions from those high-mass stellar remnant objects known as pulsars. This is in contrast to other surveys which scan higher frequencies to combat signal degradation, making them more sensitive but less efficient. So far, about 3,300 pulsars in the Milky Way have been found, but scientists believe there are loads more. And that's where SMART steps in, exploiting advances in technology and methodology. It's scanning this uncommon frequency band, hopefully cracking the mystery open just a little bit. The gravitational influence of Jupiter and Saturn may be shaking their natural satellites, and that may help solve a long-standing mystery of why their surfaces are so smooth. Scientists have known for a while that the moons orbiting the largest and second largest planets in our solar system are geologically active due to the gravitational forces acting on them, stretching and squeezing them, triggering moonquakes. This new research indicates that those quakes are likely also causing landslides that smooth the terrain instead of liquid flows from icy volcanoes as previously thought. The research was led by University of Arizona graduate Mackenzie Mills during a series of summer internships at JPL, and which will receive a boost when Europa Clipper heads off to the Jovian moon next year. The trunk of a SpaceX Crew Dragon launched in October to the International Space Station has burnt up upon re-entry a few weeks after it was jettisoned from the capsule. The American Meteor Society tracked at least 36 reports of fireballs across Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico and Texas. This time the space junk burned up entirely on re-entry, in contrast to the trunk of Crew 1 that crash-landed onto a sheep farm in southern New South Wales in July last year. The James Webb Space Telescope has detected planet-forming ingredients around hundreds of young stars in the small Magellanic Cloud. The dwarf galaxy neighbouring our Milky Way was observed by a team of international researchers who used infrared imaging to detect the thermal radiation emitted from warm dust orbiting close to young stars, which they say are likely to form planets. The team say that their findings aid our understanding of whether planets can form efficiently in galaxies that are poorer in such materials than the Milky Way, and that it also indicates that the abundance of rock-forming elements is similar to that of galaxies much further away, at a redshift of about 2. That's a period in the history of the universe about 11 to 12 billion years ago. Astronomers call that the cosmic moon. Well, in concurrent research using James Webb data, astronomers have observed water vapour in the atmosphere of an exoplanet. If confirmed, this will be a major breakthrough in the search for life on other worlds, with the water vapour indicating the presence of an atmosphere. GJ486b is about 30% larger than Earth and 3 times as massive, making the gravity on the rocky world stronger than here at home. It orbits a red dwarf star in just 1.5 Earth days, and it's too close to be in the Goldilocks zone, and yet the water vapour was detected. Astronomers must now dive deeper to see whether this H2O reading is coming from the planet or the host star. Incredible news and massive news if it is true, but I suspect it's coming from the host star. Well, we are podcasting on YouTube and across every podcast app. Find each of Trekzone's shows on Google or Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Tuned In, Spotify and more. Plus, Trekzone's channel in the iTunes library gives you a one-stop shop for all of our goodness, so jump onto your favourite podcast app, find Trekzone and subscribe. On YouTube, membership continues to be available, early access for less than a cup of coffee per month, add in behind the scenes of our next Star Trek fan film for the same price as a streaming service, but this way you get a direct, tangible benefit, and my thanks. And of course, our social media feeds always have the week's podcast highlights and Star Trek episodes. This is our 20th year to the world. We are Trekzone. I am Matt Miller. We've all been going boldly since 2003.